Welcome to the latest edition of the Intentional Career Podcast, the podcast where we give you everything you need to help you own and make the most of your career. You see, the greatest careers are those that are driven by you, not by someone else. You join a company when you want to join a company. You leave, ideally, when you want to leave. You change careers when you want to change careers. You make decisions in the workplace based on a clear plan and strategy. Your career is a story. It's a narrative. It's a book. Every job, every task you take, you really should be thinking about how this fits into another. And this is really important, especially when you're doing the things you don't enjoy in the workplace. You should be asking yourself, I might not enjoy this task, but if I do this task and I learn enough, it gives me the skills to move to the next level. It's like the old saying, we do what we have to so we can do what we want to. And that's what having an intentional career is about. It's about making sure every step in your career is intentional, it's strategic. And when things happen that are out of your control, you take a step back, you look at it and go, how can I take this situation, positive or negative, and use it for my benefit? So what are we talking about today? We are talking about embracing failure as a stepping stone to growth. Sounds long, but it's basically saying, how do you take the negative things that happen to you and make the most of it? So here's the thing. When you embrace failure, and when I say embrace it, it's like the podcast I have in my other podcast called the Unleashed Career Podcast with Joe Green. And really it's about embracing failure. When you embrace failure, it means taking failure, holding it tight, hugging it, unpicking it, loving it, trying to find out what I did well, what I didn't do well, where I made mistakes, what decisions I could have done differently. Because when you do that, you dig into it, you deal with the pain, the scar tissue, but you're learning. You're learning, and that learning process allows you to foster resilience. And then you start to think of creative ways of solving that problem. And then personal growth comes out, and out of that, a career journey that you allow you to take your next step in confidence, authenticity, and just being real with your own career. We can't afford to just, when things go wrong in our careers, just look at it and go, it was someone else's fault. It didn't go well. I don't want to think about it. I'm just applying to the next job. You really have to unpick it, because sometimes it may not be your fault, but you could have seen things that were coming and ducked and dived and reacted differently. And sometimes it could have been your fault, or sometimes it could have just been other people that you didn't manage well in that situation. Recently, I remember when I left a job I was working on, because I like to share my own personal failures. And this one, it was really, when I looked back on it, it came down to me not realizing that there had been warning signs in this working place. There had been warning signs, and I didn't make the active decision to either leave or start to build up my own network of people around me, so that when it came down to it, I had my own network, my own connect, my own supporters who could back me up. And in the end, I thought, it's fine, it will go away. I'll just work hard, and if I work hard, the problem will go away. The problem didn't go away. It stayed, and in the end, I had to leave. And that's the thing I've learned. So now, if I was going to go through that same situation, I would make sure, as I start to see the warning signs, I would start to take steps to make sure I let other people know what I'm good at, how I'm succeeding, the challenges I'm facing, so that when push comes to shove and that situation happens, already I know there are enough people that support me and back me. So it doesn't just come down to my word against the other person's word. It comes down to, but we know Femi and he does a good job. So here are 3 key points that you need to take when you're embracing failure and trying to make sure you use it as a stepping stone to growth. Number 1, we just have to shift our perceptions of failure. Too many times we've taken failure and we take it to heart. It's seen as a negative and it seems terminal. The first thing to learn about failure is that it's not terminal. When I say terminal, it means the end, finish of your life. If you fail, in most cases, it doesn't mean the end of your life or that you're dead or the end of your career. Now, if we're talking about you fail about doing something unethical, stealing company money, things like that, even that is not the end, but it's probably a strong end that you need to completely reevaluate your whole life and career. But when we're talking about, in this instance, we're just talking about failure generally. You didn't deliver, you didn't get some job done, you didn't do it up to the standard someone expects, or you didn't manage people's expectations, or the quality you did wasn't great quality. It's really about reframing it. You always have to look at it and accept, okay, yes, I didn't do what I was meant to do. I didn't deliver. I hold my hands up. I accept. But what's really important is, what did you learn? Here's a question for you. In that thing that didn't go well for you, what would you do that means it never happens again? And we're not talking about you just saying, oh, I know what I'm, it won't happen again. It's really, if this situation happens again, I will take this step and that step. If you don't know what these steps are, you haven't learned, you haven't embraced it. And it comes back to my earlier point. Whenever you have failure, you have to embrace it. And to embrace it means you look yourself in the mirror and you accept your fault. You're not perfect. The issues that all came because of your part or your lack of action. So number one is, you've got to reframe failure as an opportunity for learning. It's a chance to learn, a chance to grow. So it's a case of, yeah, I've learned something. It didn't go well, but I know what I'm going to do better. Because what this means is that the next time this situation comes up, you'll be better served to solve that problem. And there'll be someone else who's facing it for the first time who can't solve that problem. So already, you going through experiences gives you an advantage people who hasn't been through them will never have. I've lost jobs a number of times. And one of the things I've learned most is that the things I've been through are the very things when I go for job interviews, when I meet clients, when they ask me what's your biggest failure and I tell them, they can see that there's a pain, an experience that is driving me to be able to tell them that next time it happens, I know exactly what to do. So you have to take your failure or areas where you didn't do well as an opportunity to learn, to become more resilient, and just a chance to grow. And don't look at it as a reflection of your personal inadequacy or incompetence. It takes more than one person to fail a lot of times. But usually someone needs to take the can. And in that case, it may have been you. So it's never completely your fault. And you have to get out of it. In some ways, it's almost there's a bit of pride involved, where we just like to say, oh, I'm at fault. You are not the one who invented the whole planet, the universe. So if everything falls apart, it can't just be you. It's a team game. So there's more people involved in it. So you've got to learn to accept what is your fault and what is noise and what is something someone else could have done. I remember I was in a project meeting, a lessons learned session with someone I respect and I admire his professionalism. And one day I hope to bring him on. And he was honest. He said, I accept, but to be honest, there's enough blame to go around. So sometimes there's just enough blame to go around. And sometimes for a number of reasons, political or whatever, you're the one who just gets it. And there needs to be a sacrificial lamb. Number two, you have to cultivate a growth mindset. You have to have a mindset where you move away from constantly saying, I am the finished product. The moment you say you are the finished product, anything that comes along and proves that you're not will destabilize you. And because your mindset is fixed, you will find it hard to recover. So you always have to adopt a growth mindset, a mindset that embraces challenges, a mindset that persists in the face of setbacks and is always looking for opportunities, a mindset that goes in and goes, this may not go well, but even if it doesn't, we're going to learn. That's one of the reasons why so many of us procrastinate, or we don't achieve some of the things, or we don't take some of the big steps we need to in the workplace. A lot of times we're thinking, what if it goes wrong? And that's because we're not thinking, but if it goes wrong, I can learn. If it goes wrong, I'm sure I'll learn something. What's important is you put your best foot forward and you take risks and you learn from it. So you've got to see failure and all of this as opportunities to cultivate a growth mindset. So always have a growth mindset, a mindset that is seeking opportunities, chances to learn, and continuous learning and improvement. Here's a tip. Accept that till the day you die, you'll always be learning. And the moment you can convince yourself and assure yourself that you are always going to be learning, because no day is the same, every day is a school day, Anytime failure comes, you analyze, you embrace it, and you say, you know what? I'm good to go. I've learned. Number 3, you've got to learn to extract lessons from failure. And in a way, point 1 and 2 is really about point 3. Extract lessons from failure. I've said it before. Every time I come to an end of a consultancy or a coaching session or a contract, however it ends, good or bad or indifferent, I sit back and I brutally ask myself, Femi, where did you mess up? Femi, what could you have done better? Femi, where did it go wrong? And you've got to reflect on these past failures and setbacks and identify the lessons learned. And when you identify the lessons learned, you gain strength from it. And you might find you need to develop some skills or you need to look for someone that can coach you. You do that and then you gain areas of improvement, and that informs your future actions and decisions. For me now, when I come up against certain situations, because I failed in those situations in the past, I know exactly what to do. So what are our takeaways from this session today? Number 1, embrace a growth mindset by viewing challenges and setbacks as opportunities for you to grow and learn rather than just the end. It's not terminal. It's not the end. By the grace of God, nobody died. We live to fight another day. Number 2, practice resilience by bouncing back from failures with determination, optimism. Always look at it and go, this is not going to happen to me. Now I have experience of doing this. Because use that failure and flip it around and say, now I have experience of dealing with this situation, so that if it ever happens again, you know what to do. And stop dwelling on the past mistakes. What's done is done. It's how we move forward that's important. And number 3, always seek feedback and support from mentors, colleagues, trusted advisors. Listen to the Intentional Career podcast. I don't know, do something. But find 2 or 3 people that are ahead of the journey to where you are, and they can continually advise you, give you a perspective, insights, tell you what to do, and share their own knowledge. I have a mentor who always tells me there's 2 types of experience: direct experience, indirect experience. For the most part, you really should be trying to avoid direct experience, because direct experience is where you learn yourself. So try and learn from others. But in both cases, take it on board and try and make the most of it. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Intentional Career Podcast. The message today is embrace failure, learn from it. It's not the end of the world, and push on. Please click on and give us some nice feedback so that others can see it. Share this podcast with a friend who you know needs some encouragement. But also click on the link of my profile if you're listening on social media. Do that, and then you can subscribe to my newsletter for regular content. Subscribe to this podcast, or click on the link in the description of this podcast and sign up to my newsletter. Intentional Career. Own it. Maximize it. See you next week.